Some of the most fascinating things in the world are the ones we see every day but never really think about. And today, we're going to tackle one of those, the incredible puzzle of how our own faces grow.
So let's just start with the most basic question you could ask. How does a little kid's face actually turn into an adult's face? I mean, the obvious answer is it just gets bigger, right? Well, it turns out the real story is so much cooler and honestly a lot more clever than that.
Yeah, because it is so much more complicated than just getting bigger. Think about it. If your face just scaled up evenly, like blowing up a photograph, you'd end up looking, well, pretty weird. The proportions would be all wrong. The actual process is this amazing piece of biological engineering, and it all comes down to two key ideas working together.
And here they are. To really get a handle on facial growth, you just need to understand these two core processes, displacement and remodeling. Or, to put it even more simply, it's the difference between a bone moving and that same bone reshaping itself. Let's break that down.
Okay, so displacement is pretty simple. That's just the entire bone physically moving from one spot to another, from point A to point B. But remodeling is where the real magic is. This is the process of actually changing the bone's shape by adding a little material here and taking some away over there, all while it's in motion. And the key thing to remember is that these two things are always happening at the same time.
This analogy is just perfect for explaining it. So picture a man pulling a cart with a wall on it. The act of pulling the cart forward, that's displacement. The whole thing is moving. But look a little closer. While he's pulling, you've got these little workers on the cart who are busy changing the wall itself. They're taking bricks off the front and adding new ones to the back. That part, that's the remodeling. You see? The whole structure moves and changes its shape all at once.
So, how does a bone actually grow in a very specific direction? Well, nature has this ridiculously clever trick up its sleeve, especially for bones that are shaped like a V. Let's check out how it works.
It's something called the V principle, and when you first hear it, it sounds completely backward. It's a way for a V-shaped bone to get bigger and actually move towards its wide open end. How in the world is that even possible?
And here's the secret. It's so clever. Bone is actually added to the inner surface of the V, while at the same time it's being removed from the outer surface. And what does that do? Well, the entire V shape not only gets wider, but it also moves in the direction of that wide open end. It's just a brilliant, simple way to expand a structure.
Okay, so we've got this idea of movement or displacement, but believe it or not, we can get even more specific. The movement itself can happen in two totally different ways. You have to ask, is the bone doing the pushing itself, or is it just being carried along for the ride?
And this is the key difference. Primary displacement is when a bone's own growth is the engine. It's actively pushing itself away from the other bones it's connected to. But with secondary displacement, the bone is basically just a passenger. It's being carried along because a bigger structure it's attached to, like the base of the skull, is growing. So it's literally the difference between being pushed and being carried.
All right, time to put all of these pieces together. We've talked about remodeling, we've talked about that clever V principle, and we've got two different kinds of displacement. So let's see how they all work together in the real world to shape something like your upper jaw.
This is a fantastic summary of what's happening. The upper jaw moves down and forward because of a whole bunch of things at once. First, you've got primary displacement. Its own growth at the seams is pushing it forward. But at the exact same time, it's also going through secondary displacement. It's being carried forward because the skull base above it is growing. And while all of that is happening, remodeling is working non-stop, fine-tuning the surface, adding and removing bits of bone to get the shape just right. It's being pushed, carried, and reshaped all at the same time. So, what's the big idea here? What's the main takeaway? It's that facial growth isn't just a simple, straight line. It really is a sophisticated, three-dimensional dance. And that brings us to one last classic question that ties this whole thing together beautifully.
Now just stop and think about this for a second. If the whole point is for the face to grow forward, why on earth would the body be removing bone from the very front surface of the face? It sounds like it makes no sense at all. But if you've been following along, you already know the answer.
It's because it's not just about piling new stuff onto the front. The answer is that complex dance we talked about. Displacement is the big force that's carrying the whole structure forward. But remodeling is the artist, constantly refining the details. And sometimes that means taking away a bit of bone from the front to keep the proportions and the shape absolutely perfect. Once you get that dance, you've cracked the puzzle of facial growth.